Hi, my name is George O'Connor. I'm the writer and co-creator of the graphic novel Baby. We are running a Kickstarter right now for the audio read-through of the book. And part of the reason we're running this campaign is it's a way to help support artists and voiceover talent and actors whose livelihood has been interrupted because of COVID-19. And what I want to do is I want to introduce you to the people that we're all supporting. And I can't think of a better way to start than with the co-creator and artist of Baby, Griffin S. We have known each other for a very long time. He's been a fantastic collaborator, and this conversation was only supposed to be about 10 to 15 minutes long. It is not 10 to 15 minutes long because we both love creativity and apparently just can't stop talking about it. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. You're going to learn a lot about Griffin, about his other passions, his approach to creativity, and a little bit of what went into making Baby what it is. So check it out, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so for the first interview I wanted to do for the Baby Kickstarter, I made a whole lot of sense to start with a guy responsible for bringing this to life, my co-creator, my co-conspirator, for over 10 years. Please welcome to the stage, Griffin S. Hi, Griff.
Hey, everybody. Hi, George.
So the funny thing, or what might be painful to say out loud, is yes, we have been working for 10 or 11 years together as co-creators. We have known each other longer than that.
Yep.
So, I just wanted to let everybody know how much drawing and creating is just an absolute part of your DNA, because years before we ever worked together, I knew you as a creator and somebody who was always drawing. And so, yeah, it was a very black, unlike now, the very black Griffin phase with a pen and a journal in his hand. So, and one of the things I always think about is, clearly at this point, no matter how old we get, how gray some of us get, we are still creating. So there's something in us that needs to do this. So I kind of want to go back to Baby Griff. When do you remember art and drawing and creating being a part of you?
So it goes before solid recall at this point. I have stories my parents tell of me getting in trouble in like first and second grade for the teachers being upset that I wasn't giving them enough attention because I was too busy scribbling my little characters. And I actually got sent to a therapist by my second grade teacher because she felt I had issues focusing and anger issues towards her, because I would get dismissive. And then the therapist came back with, no, he's not an angry person. He just doesn't like the fact that she explains something, he understands it, and then he starts drawing because she's explaining it 9 more times and he doesn't care about those. And then she's interrupting his drawing at that point, and then that makes him upset.
So it's always been your way to shake your fist at power. So since we don't know what got you drawing, what do you remember as being an influence? What made you put that pen in your hand?
So I had a lot of siblings, and we were all like 5 years apart on age gaps. So I think it was just my way of trying to avoid the in-house drama and occupy myself a lot of the time. But it wasn't until early school years, probably the third school I went to, where I had attached storytelling to the concept. Some small creative writing projects, and I would start drawing the characters of the things that I wrote, and then that started turning into me drawing the characters of other people's little stories that they had done, and then we were doing crossover stories, and I remember some superhero character I had made, and whose name I don't remember, but I'm sure it was something rudimentary like Staff Man or something, I don't know, and he's just just a guy who was good with hitting people with a stick. That was what he did. I can see the image in my head more than I remember the details of the character.
I totally want to see Stickman now. I want to see what adult Griff remembers and how it's filtered through the years to what it would look like now.
It would be interesting to see if I could redraw to the level of poor skill that I did it at originally. Like if I could actually like lower my skill set now to recapture the fourth grade illustration.
Was there a moment or a person that kind of clicked you into the idea that it could be more than just something you were doodling in a notebook? Like when it could be more than just that, if that makes sense.
So it kind of went the other way. I had a really good high school art teacher who I should have taken with more weight. We still stay in contact now. He has me come in and give lectures to the students, basically like, don't let the world fool you. Like, you can do this as a living. Like, I do portfolio reviews for them and kind of like look over different art styles, being like, well, you should look towards this and you should actually be looking in this direction. And if you're trying to do this, maybe you should like look at this style because it's closest to yours in that genre. But at the time, closing in on the end of high school, I had every adult I knew telling me that I was wasting my time and I shouldn't be doing it. And then I believed them. So I never went to art college like I was planning on. And I ended up just like working cafes for a few years, did some tech support. And then it's somewhere in the middle of not having been drawing for like 6 or 7 years and just trying to be a cog. Um, like, not for this, like, not saying that those jobs are bad for everybody, but like it wasn't what I should have been doing. And at some point it clicked and I started drawing again. And then you and I started collaborating short, like maybe 2 years after I got my feet back under me. I think it was 2004 when I started to do it. And then 2006 is when I lost that job for like, basically being like, no, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I would rather lean this for way further. And then 2 years after that is when we went to that Comic-Con together and started talking project.
So before that, so I guess maybe around it was 2006 when I asked you to do the cover to the Viper Ash album, or is that during the dark period?
Yeah, it was like just as I was coming out of the cave again.
Oh, very cool. I'm very glad that the universe kind of crossed paths at that point. So I know that Comic-Con, I always put it at New York Comic-Con 2008, was a light bulb, just a lightning strike into my head that comics could be a storytelling vehicle, media avenue for what I was doing and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I know I always look at that weekend as a major epiphany. I also know you and I are wired a little differently. So I'm curious on what your memories of that weekend are.
So oddly, my brain has so much bleed over with different cons. I actually thought it was San Diego Comic-Con that we were at. So, but I tend to be wrong on this type of memory. So I'm going to presume that you are correct and that we did San Diego Comic-Con like in response to us having a good conversation in New York, because that makes more sense. But yeah, I remember being in the panel and like listening to, I think it was somebody from Oni Press.
Yep.
Doing like a lecture on like, the different ways that different stories can be folded into this, and the way that like, no matter what type of story you're trying to tell, you can like find a publisher that will suit you, and there's different routes to go, and everyone's got this different vibe to it, and like how they pick which stories fit their brand. And then us kind of like riffing ideas and notes that we had like been kicking back and forth, and the whole zombie craze like awareness, and like us playing with that information. And then we realized that you and I were really good at the what if game. And yeah, no, it was this nice little moment. But it was mostly like I had always been vaguely interested in comics, but like I wasn't like, it's weird because I've written a novel now, that I'm still like shopping around to agents. So now I feel like I'm a storyteller, but then I did not picture myself with that DNA. So I was sort of just like, no, I'm here to translate. I'm not the person who's going to tell the story. I'm the one who's going to like communicate it to a wider audience. Like give it some sort of scope that it doesn't have inherently. But yeah, no, it's weird seeing the intention then versus the outcome now.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Because it's interesting that you didn't think of yourself as a storyteller
Yeah.
when you absolutely 100% are. Some of my favorite things, like, so if you are new to Griffin and myself, the first comic we did is called Healed, and we did 5 issues of that, and it was kind of it was a heavy story. It was a wonderful what if experiments. Absolutely, some of my most favorite brainstorming sessions were you and I at R.I.P. the Unos in Harvard Square.
Yep.
Just kicking around ideas for the next issue of the book. So to me, just out of those moments, you were clearly a storyteller. You were bringing as many ideas, and you were sharpening as many ideas that were being thrown around.
That's something I always thought I was good at. I pictured myself as the person who, like, you tell me what the story is, and I'm like, okay, well, I see where all the fat is, where we can trim stuff, like what visual will bring the most impact. Like, I was great at that. I just did not think of myself as the person, like, laying down the actual bricks.
Yeah, which again kind of blows me away, and I wish somebody. Well, one, I guess I wish I knew, but honestly,
Yeah.
I am probably a better collaborator now than I was back then. So thank you for getting me through that primordial stage. And if it means anything, 10 years worth of apologies.
No, there's not.
But
We've both picked up a lot of new tricks.
But I mean, you're clearly, back on point. I wish I had the language, or I wish somebody had the language to explain how much of a storyteller you are personally, but how the artist is in general.
No. It wasn't until after I got my psychology degree that I was just like once I had the psychology degree, I started looking at it through multiple lenses that way. I was like, oh, I'm not that far out of what I thought. No, we just, like, I see how all this fits together now.
All right. This wasn't a topic I was thinking about, but then you just said that, and I think it's actually a huge part in your story. So after we did the first issue of Healed, 2 things happened. I had a kid.
Yep.
You went back to school for psychology. How did studying psychology for those, what was it, 2, 3 years?
5, actually.
Oh, Jesus. All right. So how did studying psychology for 5 years translate into your art, whether it was the physical draftsmanship or the mentality that went into the creative?
So the 2 fundamental things, well, initially I was in for a forensic psychology path. So I was picking up all the basics for the first 2 years, then kind of focusing on that. And it wasn't until very near what would have been the end of my 4th year that I should have been done that I was like, oh, I shouldn't be going into forensic psychology. Like, I'm good at it. I have that skill really well of like reading people and figuring out how to communicate with them the most efficiently on an individual basis just by like deconstructing what they're doing. Which is why my other forensic psychology friends and 2 people I knew who worked at the DA's office, they had pushed me in that direction because they're like, you'd be great at this. But it was all the red tape I was looking at, being like, I know how I deal with that type of authority. I'm not going to do it. Like, I will be fired in the first week for being like, why are you telling me how to do my job when you don't know what my job is? And that would have gotten me out. So I switched gears to creativity psychology at the last minute because I had already been absorbing a bunch of that just out of personal interest. So whenever I had an elective, I would lean that way with the extra information. But it basically, like, the 2 main things I pulled away was the idea that, one was the idea that every form of creativity. So people always say that creativity is valid in any context. Like every form of creativity is valid. And that is technically true. But the reason why it gets so many eye rolls is because execution and like creative execution and creative approach are two different things. And when people say that all creativity is valid, they're talking about the creative approaches are all valid. Creative executions can be very sloppy, and it's kind of like saying that everyone is a champion and gets an award, and it's like, some people need to do some more review and work harder and kind of refine themselves, and that's fine. But that's not saying that horror is less creative than fiction or than fantasy or something. Like they're all valid forms of expression. So that like seeing things from a universal perspective and like separating the intention from the outcome was huge. Secondly, learning all the specific language of creativity through a psychological context has given me it's what made me really good at doing cons with you, where I would put up the sign of I can draw anything you can imagine, because I learned how to boil everything down to the right questions, where I would see so many artists who were like, okay, well, you want me to, you're going to commission a drawing from me, so tell me exactly what you want, exactly what the setting's going to be, blah, blah, blah. And like, they would draw all these facts and details out of the client, give them something back, and then get upset with the client for asking for all these changes. When it's like, you asked the client to create an image in their head, which is what they technically hired you to do. So then you asked them the questions, they came up with it, you put something on paper that didn't match it, so you just sabotaged yourself. But then I was able to do the opposite, where I would go, all right, tell me what the subject is, tell me how you want to feel when you look at it, tell me how you want the character in the image to look like they feel. So like, you can have the character in the image looking upset, but having inspiration be what the viewer takes away. And just I would hit those 3 points, and then that meant they didn't have a locked image. They were looking for the emotional output. So that gave me all the freedom in the world I could create almost any image I want, and they would almost never have feedback because they had hired me for that, and it was taken away from that exchange by me asking them for too many details. So like little things like that I've tried to teach all of my artlings and like pass on whenever I do a lecture. Like that's been one of the core things that I'm really trying to like push out there. Be like, if someone trusts you with their creativity, don't make them do the work. Like do your job. Be confident. Don't like panic and like feel like you have to narrow down what they mean.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite con memories. And again, we have been next to each other for 10 years at this point. That's got to be at least 50 shows or more. Like no more than 6 feet away from each other, very often 6 inches away from each other.
Right.
For multiple days in a row.
Usually with you standing right over my shoulder as I'm just hunched over drawn.
And what has always blown me away is the consistency in your fans or people who quickly became your fans, literally skipping away from the table when you hand them their commissions. It's the cliched, but it's true. It's the hands over the mouth giggling and those little gallop steps. Get it. And the reason it's burned into my head is not because it happened one time. It's because it has happened consistently over 10 years, over dozens and dozens of shows. Like this is a thing that happens. And we have been like, if you want to interrupt me blowing you up, go right ahead.
I do a little bit because it was year 2. It was the show, I think it was a Boston Comic Con that we did right after, or maybe it was Baltimore. It might have been our first Baltimore show. But we were right next to, like, you had the books. I hadn't gotten into prints yet, so I had like original art and some like, the commission sign and stuff like that. And next to me was the guy with the tower who was just like mass producing, like he was outsourcing like some of the line work, and he was just like working a machine of just making posters of these like action scenes. And it was solid comic book work. But he would have like a line of 5 people at all times, and people would just be like, yeah, number 2, number 5, number 27, and I guess a number 18 because you have like a 4 for this much money deal. Right. And he was just like cranking out income as people were just like walking up, ordering, leaving. And you saw at one point that I looked bummed out because I wasn't getting as much traffic, and I was doing the thing that I shouldn't have been doing, where I was comparing myself and like realizing that or feeling like I shouldn't be there, that I wasn't ready yet. It was the imposter syndrome moment that I'm usually immune to, but at that point it hit me. And you just kind of leaned over and you were like, look, I get it. Like, that guy, he's making a lot more money than you are, but nobody's leaving his booth smiling. Yeah. And then I like played it back in my head, and people like would come up, get something for me, and they would just be so happy leaving, as compared to like him, where it was just like people would order and they would get the things, but there was no joy in the transaction.
Right. You know, I think, yeah, like you're saying, it's not that these people that we've been next to have been untalented.
Right.
It's a different approach.
Yeah.
You know, one of the I don't know, benefits of being next to you at these shows is when you put up your prints for the show as your backdrop, they stop people. They stop people because they're unique. They are not mass produced. And each one has a story to it. It's, you know, if you're going to do Deadpool, it isn't, you know, a shoulder, you know, it isn't this framing of a really well rendered Deadpool. Right. You're putting your version of Deadpool in there, but then layering a whole story around it.
Yeah, no, like the Deadpool with the guns or the thing, or like he's got the chimichanga catchphrase is the common, and like I get it, like that's the iconic, it's the easy grab. But the one Deadpool I had that's like sold the most is the one where he's got the little flower bed and he's watering all the baby Groots. Because in my head, people started making the joke of like, oh, when Raccoon grabbed the little stick and like regrew baby Groot, why didn't he grab a bunch of them and make an army? I'm like, that's a Deadpool move. I'm on it. Give me a second.
Yeah. That's also one of the fun things of watching you work and interact, is how fast you bring, you know, what feel like two completely different ideas, but tie them together. Again, it's unexpected, but it makes perfect sense when you see it. And the X factor, no one else is doing that. Like, you know, people can walk by a con and point at wonderful artwork all day. You know,
so many people more skilled than I am on a like just pure talent of composition level, but like, yeah, no, I have always liked playing with the ideas more than capturing the icon.
You get people slowing down, and again, this isn't the reason this sticks is not because it happened one time, because it's happened multiple times over hundreds of days, you know, dozens of shows, is the person walking by, stopping, laughing, gasping, oh knowing, and then going back to grab their friend and make them see it. Right?
Is that a Patrick Stewart drinking tea in his underwear being sexy? Yes, it is. Okay, I need to get everyone I know and bring them here right now.
Right. Right. You know, it has become an experience. You know, and that's what I've always that's why I enjoy being next to you. Is, you know, these cons can be a sludge. But you know, when you interact and when people see your stuff, stories happen.
Yeah.
You know, moments happen, which is wonderful. And it's one of the very neat things, again, being next to you for all these years, that kind of makes me, you know, go Griff, is I remember starting out when you had enough to kind of fill half a table.
Right.
And then there was one year, it's like, oh, he can hold down his own table.
Yeah.
Like, monetarily, he can hold it down. Art-wise, product-wise, he can, you know, our little Griff has flown. And, you know, is off on his own, and it was an awesome thing to watch happen over the years, and now that is morphing into the people that are looking for you, that are
no, that's always nice.
enthusiastically looking for you at these shows that we go back to over and over again. And again, you know, if I'm going to tie this all up into something, it still amazes me that at the beginning you didn't realize what a storyteller you were, when clearly everybody, that's what people were reacting to. So I'm so glad, you know, however those light bulbs went on, that they went on, right? So now it's that thing of, rather than doing it by instinct, you're not doing it with purpose, and that just elevates everything.
Yeah, having intention makes it so much cleaner, because instead of just like resisting myself by not seeing it and kind of like doing the stupid questions and taking the long way around every time, like going in with the intention makes everything smoother, at least, where it's not me trying to convince myself, it's not you pointing it out to me again after I've forgotten for the 5th time.
Well, then, you know, on a very draftsmanship level, it becomes repeatable.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an accident. It is honed skill, you know, that you can bring to the table, literally and figuratively, every time somebody has a request, whether it's a comic or a pinup.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's been awesome watching that evolution. So kind of sort of bouncing off of that, as we are recording this, 2 days ago, Fan Expo Boston Comic-Con officially canceled.
Yep, as expected.
The day after that, so one day before recording this, Terrificon, which is our big Connecticut show, has been one of our favorite shows for the 7 or 8 years that we've been doing it, officially got canceled.
Yeah.
So, and then there've been a handful of smaller shows. Plastic City Comic-Con, It was a great one-day show that's been a blast to be at. They had to pull the plug. So there is a one dark horse show in October that is that is all we have left for potentially.
I think I still have one in September that's on a potential. Like, they haven't pulled the plug yet, but I'm guessing if Terrificon pulled, they're probably going to be the next ones.
Yeah, and then we're both keeping our eyes on MICE, which is the Massachusetts Independent Comic Expo. We're keeping an eye on Small Press Expo down in Bethesda. Those are September, October shows.
Yeah.
So, you know, they haven't had to make the call yet. But also, you know, they were still in their application phase. So,
right.
You know, so the birds in hand, like 3 of them died 3 days ago, on top of the ones that died before that. So this has been a very long way to get to. With the loss of these conventions, how has that impact? I mean, fuck it. It's like, this is what it is. How has it impacted you financially? How are you trying to get your artwork out there? Because it is part of your income. It is part of how you pay the bills. And for us, making artwork is how we pay for tomorrow's artwork.
That's been the tricky part. It's the Seinfeld quote, when everyone used to ask him, like, what's your favorite episode of Seinfeld? He's like, whatever one I'm working on right now. It's like a breath of air. This one's going to get me to the next one. That's the point. But no, this is, so what happened immediately once all this started to go into lockdown is every visual artist I know started to put up, you know, specials and sales, and, like, you know, really started to press everything, which, you know, all of the artists should have been doing the whole time, is having an advertising structure. But you know, hopefully they'll keep the momentum after. But I am not, you know me, I'm not one to try to compete. Yeah. So I tend to immediately change gears. So I've been working on a few small projects. Like some people still reached out to me from cons, the people who would normally look for me.
Oh,
And they
that's
were
awesome.
like, hey, since all the cons are getting shut down, like 2 people have reached out and started the conversation, but because everyone's in tough financial situations, they're not biting, and I'm not going to press them on it because these aren't high priority purchases.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of things that have been rolling on the side, luckily. Not a lot. And luckily, I was in a pretty good financial situation going into the thing, which is abnormal for me. But I've had some good success with some Dungeons and Dragons based Kickstarters recently, or
Yeah.
over the past year.
Yeah.
So those have all been going well. And aside from those, so I had finished the first novel. I started working on the second one, which is not related to the first one. It's like not a part 2, but I'm still shopping the first one around to agents. I actually just was my partner just connected me to a Brandon Sanderson series of lectures that he did at New York College for people who want to be professional authors. And I've been listening to those, and immediately, like by the third entry, I was like, well, I have to go back into my first novel and fix like 4 things immediately. So that's actually what I have on for the rest of tonight, is to read through again and like highlight the things that are going to be affected by these changes. So I've basically just switched away from the visual stuff for the moment and started focusing on the investments of stuff that will hopefully potentially have better longevity. And I like pulling up old projects of like the children's book that I had created that I never actually tried to send out because I wasn't happy with the final few cells. Stuff like that. So I've been trying to focus on work that will be able to be invested in the future, but financially right now I'm just kind of like slowly watching a nest egg decline. So but luckily, you know me, and I'm good with uncertainty. Another thing from my psychology background is I am very well aware of how moral panics work. I'm very well aware of like how uncertainty tensions have different thresholds with humans, and because I am a little bit more aware of myself than some of my friends can be sometimes, and I don't have any anxiety conditions, which some people I know have really fundamental ones. I've spent more time like checking in on them and making sure they're doing okay. Anytime I don't hear from someone for a week, I just kind of poke them and like, how's your brain doing? Yeah. All right, walk me through it. But yeah, so a lot of the art stuff has gone to the side, unfortunately. But which I also had a mild panic because I tried to do a drawing as a gift to somebody, and I found that my personal comfort with my own art turns out suffers if I am working in isolation. I usually do my work at cafes and restaurants and bars. Like I'll go set myself up, spend an evening, like 4 or 5 hours just sitting there, all the noise of the world around me. And part of that is it gives me a sense of inspiration, vitality. It also keeps me from like goofing off on Facebook or like what have you, because I'll be judged if I do so, and I don't want to be that person. But also I have found it's the same reason why when they do drink and draws at Comic-Cons, I end up not enjoying them as much as I think I'm going to, because the second I'm in a room with a whole bunch of artists, I'm not special anymore. But like if I'm out at like Trident Cafe in Boston and I'm just sitting there at the bar, like even if nobody engages me, someone passing behind me might pause and do a double take, and that just makes me feel more accomplished immediately, which as visual artists, like we normally are working in isolation, and it turns out that I've unhealthily attached the approval from those moments as a fuel, which has been good for productivity until now. Right. But like, because we don't normally get access to the approval of our work, getting it immediately as a sense of people like appreciating it in the moment has helped me motivate, and I don't have it, so it's making it difficult.
You're talking about, you were talking a couple minutes ago, and what was going through my head is like, yeah, okay, I guess, despite the heightened uncertainty that's going on right now, it's like, okay, yeah, I guess Griff is okay, to weather this storm just the way your DNA is put together.
Yeah.
And then you hit that part where I was like, oh, everything, it is, everything that made him strong. Oh man. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Luckily, like I
yeah.
said, I cope well. It's just, it's been tough for the first time ever looking at my work, or for the first time since I was in high school, looking at my work and going, I can see that this is technically a solid portrait. It feels empty to me. And like feeling the emotional versus like technical disconnection, which I've seen other artists go through, and I've always been like, I can walk you through how to reconnect. I've never emotionally understood, like I could empathize or I could sympathize but not empathize, and now I'm like, oh, now I know what that feels like, and that's awful.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
I appreciate it. It's weird.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then because there's no quick solve. There's no, oh, we'll just do this.
Yeah, like a couple people I know tried to give advice, and they were like, oh, can't you like put on cafe background music, or like go sit outside at a park so you're not inside? I'm like, no, it's not the being outside, and it's not the noise. It's the chance, the illusion in my head, the fantasy that someone is over my shoulder, like in love with this already, even though it's only half done. Yeah. And like the little moments of reinforcement that I get when like a barista's walking by and they do a double take, or like someone sitting next to me just goes, yeah, it's really good, and then goes on with what they were working on. It's just those little bits of reinforcement that it turns out have bolstered me in a way that I did not realize was necessary to my process.
And their area of effect is not 6 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'm going to take that area of effect and turn it into something that, again, has been very cool to see. You mentioned your D&D Kickstarters.
Yeah.
You've just launched your
fourth
one. All right, tell the people about it because it's wonderful.
So D&D is fairly new to me still. Like I'd played a few times, mostly actually other campaign styles like Vampire the Masquerade, Mage the Ascension, like a couple of those when I was in my late teens, early adulthood. And then D&D I only started getting into maybe 2.5 years ago, and it's because a group of my artlings, they wanted to play but never could figure out like how to get going or who should run the game. So I was like, I can run a game. Like I may not know the rule system, but at that point I was like, I can tell a story. Like you put me on stage and tell me to talk, I will get you to the other end of a thing in a concise and reasonable way.
Entertaining.
Yeah. So I started, running games, and the more I learned, I also became disillusioned with a few functionality things that seemed to be woven into the construct. So the first couple of campaigns I did were like, here's a campaign notebook that is designed in the reverse engineering of a story Bible, because I had also already written my novel, so I knew like, okay, how do you lay out information when you're writing a story? Well, we should be recording the information in that same format, so this NPC, we saw them first on this session. This is where we met them. This is who they were. Great. Now in the back, we have an index of NPCs, so we write their name, write that page number. And then that way, any time they show up, you put the page number in as a comma. So that way, like, instead of flipping through every page of every note you have looking for one name, you go to the back and you can immediately reference like, oh, go to the back, that's their name, flip back, this is where we met them, okay, and this is the last time we saw them, now I remember what's going on. And it makes things so much easier for the players. And then like I had the thing of the character sheets where everyone's doing digital now, and everyone kept printing out new sheets every time there was any minor edit. So I found out that dry erase paper is now a thing. Like it's not laminated sheets, it's dry erase paper. It is this depth of paper, and it is just inherently laminated, and they can print on it. So I started making dry erase character booklets that you can constantly, just with a dry or wet erase marker, can just constantly re-edit your character at any point in time. So you have your digital sheet, and before the game, you just transcribe it, so you're not lugging your whole laptop, and you actually just have a little booklet in front of you with all the little cheat sheets. And in there, I put all the things of like, here's my most frequently used combat mechanics. Here's my most frequently used items. Just so you have a quick reference, and then you have the other page of like, and here's everything else just in case I need to remember. But this is the stuff I rely on, so why do I need everything else detailed up front? So like just improving the efficiency of like the way information's grabbed, the way it's interacted with. And this is the first time that since I've been running campaigns in the same general environment which is like a small town, and across a bridge is a bigger city, and then there's like a few other like, there's the jungle area, there's the southern like swamps, there's the mountains. So I have like this closely knit world I've built, but it's all urbanly influenced because I grew up in a city. So when I think of adventure, I don't think of we're going out to a forest to explore a thing. Like, I know how to put those in because you have to leave the area sometimes. Right. But I have all these adventures that are set within the city confines, where it's like, oh, well, there's this under basement structure with all these tunnels that you never would have come across. Oh, there's this abandoned building that is an old printing press that somebody figured out how to like print cantrip scrolls that are automatically empowered. So they've been making their living doing that. And now there's gremlins in there that they need to get weeded out. Like, little adventures that you can do that way. And then all these items that have come with it, and like, spells that only make sense in a city environment, and subclasses that I've like customized as like, oh, well, our druid our bard made friends with the alchemist. They ended up dating as their PC and NPC. And so I was like, okay, well, you guys have been dating for like 12 sessions. I'm going to say that she had to have taught you some combat, like quick things of like, oh, if you're in this part of the city, look for this herb and this thing so you can make a quick like poultice for a wound. So I made a combat alchemist like medic feat custom for that character, and kind of was just like, yeah, because you bonded with this person, you now have this skill that they have given you inherently that only could come from them. And so as I've curated all these things and play tested them without realizing I was play testing because I was just making it and letting it run, now I have this great collection of tons of these little bits. So I've taken all the subclasses, I've taken all the unique races I've created of like, oh, goblins have like, they're coming out of the mountains and they're mating with gnomes. So now we have nomblins. Great. What was those traits look like? Oh, the winter eladrin that keep bleeding over into the city, they've been hooking up with these drow. What does that do?
What's up with that?
Then like all the unique spells and the unique items and all this stuff. So now I've just created the newest campaign is my first one of like, here's a bunch of assets that could be folded into your campaign. And hopefully the next one will be like me actually like laying out the adventures and the campaigns that I've been running people through in a concise way, which I have a whole bunch of plans on how to fix that for better purposes. Because the one thing that keeps driving me crazy is every time I read somebody else's created adventure, they like have the hook, and then there's the villain eventually. And at no point before you reach the villain do you interact with them. Do you see them in the world? Like the moment you meet the villain, you're in combat with the villain. And the whole hook is just the sort of like, oh, you were going to the city, and every time, like, I got one of those collections where it was just like 30 adventures, but they had all been written by different people, so everyone had a different town, a different bartender, a different thing. And I want to like, no, all the adventures keep the same NPC point of contacts. You can make them more dynamic and change them in specific ways over the course of the adventure if you lock in on them with the same effort that you could create a new one every time.
Yeah.
Like, make the consistency, put a cast list up front so you know where everyone is. You have the villain, you can drop them into the backgrounds of scenes because you know from the start of reading the adventure who they are and what their role is. So you're just like, oh yeah, you guys are going through these ruins. You see this person in blue robes like going over by the catacombs, like doing some sort of research. Oh, you see this person in blue robes over here, like interacting at this table, having a very heated discussion. And then 10 sessions later, yes, a person in blue robes approaches with an army of skeletons that they've risen from those catacombs, and a few generals and like they're marching towards you, and it's like, oh, we've seen that guy around. Fuck, we could have dealt with this sooner.
So when people go to your Kickstarter that's running right now, what can they get? Like, what's the thing, and then what are some of the other rewards that they can walk away with?
So what the rewards, I tend to keep everything very concise. I try not to complicate my Kickstarters because I found that the D&D community on there is already rabid. The first one that I launched ended up like I expected like 1,500 just to get the printing done. It went to like 18 grand, and like I am still trying to resolve some of the shipping issues of like 4 or 5 people internationally who are like, I never got the thing, and I'm like, oh my god, it's been a year. Why are you just telling me now?
Right.
So it's with 550 backers, like it happens. So I was like, I'm just not going to advertise as hard. I'm going to put these out there and hope they'll float. It's cool. I don't need this much kickback. I'm not looking to become rich. I don't want to become a retailer. I just want these new ideas to go out there and other people to see, oh, there's other ways to do this. So that being said, for this one, there's really only 3 tiers. There's the $12 digital, like here's just the raw info on a black and white sheet of paper, just typed up core info, no flavor text, no, big explanations, just the stats. For 24, you get the like prettier PDF where it's like everything's designed, there's illustrations, there's a little bit of flavor text for stuff if you're into the more like traditional DM booklet type things. And then for $40 plus shipping, you get the actual hardcover, which is of the same color thing. But the inherently included information is 124 assets. Which may expand a little bit because I'm still running the game, so sometimes I get new ideas, so it may go up a little bit if I'm just like, oh, this is a new item that I just came up with today, gotta throw that in. But it's 64 unique objects, so like weapons, armor, consumables, specific types of ammunition or weapons that aren't already existing that I'm like, why not? Like, there's something that I know of in City Living. There's 2 things. One is the blackjack, and one is a rat tail. Or a rat king. It's basically like a flail, but it's you take 2 bolas, and it's the ones that you throw to catch people. But if you just hold them you braid them up and you use those as a flail, and that way you can separate them if you have to and throw them. That's a weapon I have now in there. The blackjack is just a specific small thing, but it's a sack of coins, so that like there's a specific character subclass that I have that like money is their focus because it's a commerce-based thing, because it's a city-focused class or subclass. So like depending on what they do with that money, and like as their powers grow, they can like it does other things where it generates like a magic coin every once in a while that has a specific effect. But like for the most part, you're just hitting people with a bag of coins. It's but so there's 64 unique objects. There are 6 cantrips, I think 12 or 24 spells. I don't remember how deep I went. I think I only went to like level 3 spells because of the other part, I'll tell you in a minute. 6 new, they're racial blends. They're not new races. It's like I said, the Eladrin Drow blend and the, Goblin and Dwarf mixture. Then, shoot. 12 subclasses, 6 backgrounds, 6 feats, just things to make things, and it's going to include so out of the 124, that is the core stuff that is included no matter what at this point. We're already successfully funded too, so like it's going to happen.
Congratulations.
Like we're at like 400% right now, but we have a stretch goal at 5,000. If we get it up to 5,000, which I think we're halfway there at point of recording, then I will also include the 0 to level 5 adventure that I've already created. So it'll be like, and I say level 0 because it's another one of those things that like everyone always starts at level 1. Right. And that means that you have to like make up a reason why everyone's like coming together as a seasoned adventurer. And doing level 0, I was just like, okay, so you just strip out the class information. So you have a background, you have a race, and you have your basic skill attributes with no proficiencies. That's it. Like we just pocket that information. Now you're a level 1 or level 0 character. You're essentially an NPC with like 2 hit points. So I need you to get from here to here, and then you get on dry land off this boat where this little thing where you all got on for a new start, and then it goes wrong, and now you're all stuck together. This is where we start. The beginning or the end of that is the beginning of your level 1. Right. So that way it gives you like the session 0 idea now becomes its own little adventure with its own bonding automatically instead of just an interview process where then they jump straight to level 1. Like I wanted something else. So, hopefully that'll be enough incentive to get enough people to buy into it to break that level. And then I can just add those, I think it'll add like 36 pages to the actual book itself, but it'll be very clean cut adventures with that cast list up front and a very I got the maps already made because I've had to redraw them 12 times for the existing players. It should be good, but I mean, and then if not, then I'm still going to launch, and the next Kickstarter is going to be the Book of Adventures. So, this is basically just opting in early for the first set.
That's beautiful, man. It's been awesome to see, that explode and grow.
Yeah, very surprising. It's not where I thought I was going to become. It wasn't where I thought I was going to find my financial stability.
Real quick, bringing it back to the baby Kickstarter, which is why we're here, and we haven't talked about the book at all.
I know. Even though he's so charmingly being patient behind you, waiting for his turn to talk.
So one of the rewards that people can get and directly helps support you is the personalized sketch, where it's going to be baby plus whoever the backer wants to have into that sketch. We did it for the first Kickstarter 2 years ago, and a bunch of people dug it and got into it. So if someone's watching this, and I want them to know what you think about, when you're combining, somebody sends you a photo of themselves or the person they want in that sketch, right? So when you're taking in that information, what are you taking in? How do you translate it from, like I said, this picture into the sketch?
So because of the way we approached this last time with the selfie, I kind of used the same logic where like we created the scene that already exists, and I created the templates of like the body and the shape that's like sitting there and what action they're doing. So that'll make this able to be done in the way that we're trying to. Yeah. But what I'm really hoping for is what really made it fun last time was people wanting different facial expressions. So I want the person who's like, thrilled to be reading with the like big thing. I want the one who's like has the wide eyes of just realizing that there's the baby right behind them. Like, I would love to get a variety of emotional reactions on there. But one thing that we are doing differently this time, which I don't actually remember if I made it clear enough that it's actually, if not, feel free to quickly edit the text on the site after this. But I do. So I set it up so that there was like an adult reading and a child reading.
Yep.
And obviously people can choose like one or the other, and I have it on layers so I can separate them out. But like if one person is like, yeah, I want me and my kid, like that's part of the same thing. Like that's fine with that. I set it up so that they could be seen together very easily, still on the same level, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, it'd just be nice.
Yeah. And what I loved about it, again, we talked briefly about what this moment could be, but really this moment, is created by you, and without explicitly talking about it, the path you went down has fit perfectly with the theme of this campaign, which is the togetherness. Part of the reason we're launching this campaign now is because we're all stuck together. We are in where we are with the people we're with. And God, what at this point, 5-6 years ago, when we did the first issue of Baby, one of our goals was to create a story that everybody could enjoy together. Like I always say, it's the Looney Tunes bullseye is what we were going for, where the parents and the kids are laughing together, but maybe for different reasons,
right?
But they're together, and it's something everybody can enjoy together. And so in this moment when we are stuck together with who we're stuck with, it felt like this read through and the story, at least the theme, the concept behind the story, fit with this moment. And then again, for you to come in with this sketch that's going to capture kind of this moment and hopefully be a positive reminder
Yeah.
Of some of the silver lining of this. I mean, I'm saying my son like you don't know him, but and hell, I think I'm going to interview him soon, so who knows how that's going to go.
Oh gosh.
But the silver lining to all of this is Logan and I have been on opposite sides of the couch, me working, him doing his schoolwork since mid-March.
Yeah.
And 95% of the time it's been wonderful. I just want to be honest. Like, when you're stuck inside with the people you love the most, they're still going to get on you. He eats carrots in a really weird way, Griffin. I just need.
Oh no, does he do the scrape?
Yes. Like multiple vertical scrape.
No, but yeah, no, I always like that about you because everyone else I know when they have kids, they immediately go into like the parent cover story, and you've always just been like, "Now look, this is how it is." Like I love it and I appreciate it, but there's this sliver right here that I could do without.
I'd like to think I'm honest. So when I do say things like 95% of this isolation, spending literally every day, almost every hour with him has been the blessing, has been the silver lining, has been the positive I will take away from all of this.
Nice.
And so, having this reward that hopefully will be a pleasant reminder of some of the silver lining that's been going on with this. And again, what I love is that you and I did not talk about what this reward could be or look like.
No, this was one of the times where we were like, we'll touch base later. I'm like, oh, I'll work on some sketches in the meantime. And then I threw it back and you were like, that one, you already nailed it. We're done.
Yeah. And as to steal a phrase, as I start to land this plane, what I have always enjoyed about working with you is, and again, I guess we'll go back to this theme of storytelling, is your storytelling ability, the way you see things, the way you connect things has been a wonderful part of this collaboration, where it's funny where you thought that your job was to take in all the information and basically regurgitate that information.
Yeah.
Whereas as the person who was working with you, I never felt that. I never felt like I had to spoon feed you everything, because what you gave back was the plan plus. It is like, if you go to, so everybody, anybody can download the first issue of Baby right now and see if it's up your alley.
Yeah.
If you go to the third page of the book, that's the moment where we have Baby swimming away. And I'm pretty sure the script was just like, 3 panels, Baby's got some lines, but really what it is we just need to see him swimming away.
Yeah.
That's all that was in the script. And then what you brought back was there's like a whole sea story like going on in the background, where there is story within the story that we didn't talk about. It wasn't in the script, but it's what you brought to the page. You saw what could be filled in, you saw what could be elevated. And I'm bringing up one page, but if we do the quick math at this point, we've got 200 pages together.
Yeah.
And that collaboration, that additive that you bring is on every page. It's what the story needs plus. And it's what always made getting pages from you really, really fun. Because I got to see not only how you interpreted what I threw down, but what you added and how you elevated. So I will keep saying this, because the only reason I'm standing here 10, 11 years later is because you said yes 11 years ago. I'm not here if you don't say yes. I don't find this medium that has been really rewarding if you don't say yes. So I've told you, God, I hope I've told you in person, but I will tell you on Zoom for everybody to see. Thank you, man. I'm not here without you, and I really appreciate you rolling the dice on these projects with me. And honestly, it's been so much fun to watch you grow as an artist, as a proprietor, as a storyteller. It's been awesome to be 6 feet to 6 inches away from you for 10 years. And I really can't wait to do it again in 2021.
I can't follow that. I can't. that was so much and so poignant. But no, this is the great thing about you is your ability to collaborate with so many different types of creatives on so many different types of projects with such a vast array of intentions, outcomes, methods, modes, scope, and the fact that you were like in the middle of lockdown where we're all separated, you have found how like 3 projects now of ways to like reknit all these groups back together for more collaboration, despite the fact that we can't sit across the table in a Nuno's and like hash it out. Like, you are unstoppable. You are an unstoppable creative force for good.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I mean, I can't take the compliment because that's my ism, so I'm just going to reflect it back to you. You know, you started me down this path. You helped me learn what I didn't know. Right. So thank you once again, jumping into a creative endeavor with me. If you want to, Griff, where can people learn more about what you do?
You can go to griffins.com, GRIFFINESS. And if you do that same spelling, but put a hashtag or an underscore between the first and last name, that's how you find me on Twitter or Instagram.
Excellent. And all the links will be below. If I can figure out how to put them on the screen, you'll know because I put them on the screen.
Neat.
Yeah, man. Thank you again so much.
Thanks for bringing me in.
Dude, of course. We will, no doubt, we will talk later. And best of luck with the rest of your D&D campaign.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Go check out Griffin. If you dig what I do, it's because of him. So there you go.
Thank you for watching. You can find all the links down below for the baby Kickstarter, for Griffin's D&D campaign, for all of his social links, my social links, and where you can learn more about everything we're creating. We'll see you next time. Take care.